Hey, what's going on guys? In today's video I'm going to be talking about the always evident debate whether Hisense or Losense is better for Fortnite. Now on both sides of the argument there are very good debates whether Hisense or Losense is good or which is better, but personally I have played on both Losense and Hisense, so in this video I will have no bias on each side. Okay, but before we start talking about actual in-game sensitivities, we first need to cover what DPI is. And dots per inch or DPI is actually the system that your mouse uses to regulate how fast your cursor is going to move across your screen. This is actually a system that all mice use, or anything that has a sensor in it uses, and it's pretty easy to change, but the normal settings are 400 DPI, 800 DPI, 1600 DPI, and 3200 DPI. Now there are players that use different DPIs other than that, like I think Mr. Savage is on 1400 DPI, but normally most players and pros will stick to this common schedule of those 4 different interchangeable DPIs. And about 2 months ago, a lot of Fortnite pros like tier 1 names like Bugha, Mongraal, Scented, all of those guys started switching to a higher DPI. So instead of playing on 400 DPI, they would double it and go to 800 DPI. And then for Mongraal, he switched from 800 DPI to actually 1600 DPI. And the reason for this is actually what you call pixel skipping. Pixel skipping is when you're on a lower DPI, it actually skips over a pixel, because when you are on a lower DPI, you have less dots per inch. So your mouse will not be able to render all your movement when you are on a lower DPI. This actually is very evident in Fortnite and is a real reason why a lot of pro players are switching to a higher DPI. So right now the most common one people are switching to are 1600 DPI, which is what I play and recommend. Now to actually change your mouse DPI, it's actually pretty easy. So what you want to do is you want to find the package you bought your mouse in, whether it's a Logitech or a Razer mouse or even just a normal gaming mouse. There's always going to be a downloadable hub you can get off of Google, and this will allow you to actually change any of your settings. Most of the time it also allows you to change your RGB, but that's beside the point. Right now you can just go into that software that you do download off Google, make sure that it is the correct one, because otherwise it will not work, and this will allow you to actually go ahead and change all your DPIs, and you can play around with anything that you want. But we're just going to go ahead and change it to 1600 DPI because right now that is the best DPI that most pros are using. Now a common lie that most people say is that higher DPI gives you less input delay, and this is not true. Higher DPI does not give you less input delay if you actually change your sensitivity to match the same sensitivity that it was when you had a lower DPI. So to put this in actual sense, if you keep your same sensitivity in game, then it will give you less input delay. But if you change your sensitivity to match the exact same sensitivity when you change your DPI, this will not give you any less input delay at all. So now that we actually know what DPI is, let's go ahead and talk about the different pros and cons versus Losense and Hisense, starting with Losense. So with Losense, this is going to give you an actual controllable sensitivity that is going to be less difficult to learn, but the only problem or downside to this is you're going to have to make larger movements, meaning you're going to have to spend more time aim training, because this is going to have to do with more of your arm muscle memory. The biggest problem with this is you're going to have to use more mouse space, and you're going to have to learn to pick up your mouse constantly so that you do not run out of mouse space and do not get killed that way. Now currently the average pro player does play on a low sensitivity, and this is because when they learned how to play Fortnite, that is what they played on and they just never switched. Now back when most of these pro players started playing the game, there was no need to be as mechanical as you need to be today, and that's why they prioritized having consistent aim over being super mechanical. Now just because there are more pro players using Losense does not mean it's better. For example, with Hisense, you actually do not move your mouse as far, so common times you will not have to pick it up at all, and this gives you actually more control over your game in total. Now I know that Bugha has personally said it himself that Hisense players will always have an advantage over Losense players, and this is the exact same reason that I just stated. But the reason that most pro players are not switching to a Hisense is because it is extremely hard to develop the motor skills necessary to be consistently a good aimer on Hisense. And I know this for a fact personally because I have aim trained for a constant amount of hours in aim labs on high sensitivity, and my aim is still butt cheeks, and it is extremely hard to be consistent. Another reason it's hard to be consistent is in case you get nervous. If you get nervous, you're going to start shaking, and in the middle of a tournament, if you're playing on high sensitivity and you start shaking, that is not going to be good for your aim. So a really good sensitivity that I recommend to beginners is 1600 DPI 5% X and Y. And this is because for me, I find it to be a perfect sweet spot between not being too high that I can't aim and then also not being too slow that I can't build. So I do really like this sensitivity and I find it really easy to control. Now obviously everybody is a different person and we all have different preferences, so the sensitivity might be too high for you or it could be too slow. So for that, I would go ahead and recommend you to try out a lower sensitivity or go ahead and raise it as well if it is too slow. But the highest I recommend you go to is 8% X and Y, and the lowest I recommend you go to is 2% X and Y, because either of these sensitivities going further than that would be way too high or way too slow to be playable. But when you actually do start messing around with your sensitivity, don't change it drastically. I recommend you only change it by like half a sensitivity or 0.5, and this will allow you to actually just get regulated to your sense. If it still feels higher or still feels too slow, go ahead and do it by another 0.5, and I recommend you do this till you find the perfect sensitivity. So now that we found the perfect sensitivity for you, it's time to drill it home and start aim training. So I have actually created a couple aim guide videos right here, and if you want to watch those, just go ahead and click on them right now. Thanks for watching guys, have a great day and peace out.